stop for a moment. Think about the number 2000. 2,000 years ago, a man was born in a small town. He never wrote a book. He never led an army. He never traveled far from home. And yet, his name is known by more than 2 billion people today. His words are still read every single day. His life changed how we count years. The whole world uses BC and AD, before him and after him. Who was this man? His name was Jesus, and today, on Timeless Stories, we are going to tell his story. But not just one side of the story. We are going to look at his childhood, his teachings, his miracles, his painful death, and the mystery that followed. We will look at what the ancient writings say. We will look at history. We will look at the moments that made him one of the most important people who ever lived. This is also a great story for English practice. You will hear clear sentences. You will hear simple vocabulary. You will hear a story full of emotion, drama, and meaning. So whether you are learning English or you love history, this story is for you. And before we begin, write in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is in your country right now. Now, let's begin. The story starts in a small town, not a big city, not a palace, not a place of power. It starts in Bethlehem, a quiet town in the land of Judea. A young woman named Mary was engaged to a man named Joseph. Joseph was a carpenter. He worked with wood. He made things with his hands. They were ordinary people. But one day, something extraordinary happened to Mary. An angel came to her. The angel told her she would have a baby. Not an ordinary baby. A very special child. A child who would be important for all people. Mary was afraid, but she listened. She believed. When Jesus was born, the Gospels, the ancient books about his life, say that strange and beautiful things happened. In the east, wise men saw a star. They followed the star for a long time. They came to find the baby Jesus. They brought gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. These were gifts for a king. On the hills near Bethlehem, shepherds were watching their sheep at night. Suddenly, the sky lit up. Angels appeared. The shepherds were terrified, but the angels told them, "Do not be afraid. A special child is born tonight. Go and find him." The shepherds ran. They found Mary, Joseph, and the baby, and they told everyone what they had seen and heard. Mary remembered all of these things in her heart. After the birth, the family moved to Nazareth. This was a small town in Galilee, far from the big cities, far from the religious leaders, far from the noise of power. Jesus grew up there. He learned from Joseph. He learned to work with his hands. He learned the Jewish scriptures, the holy writings of his people. He went to the synagogue, the place where Jewish people prayed and studied. We do not know much about those years, but one story gives us a small window. When Jesus was 12 years old, his family went to Jerusalem for a festival. Jerusalem was the great city, the holy city, the city of the temple. After the festival, Mary and Joseph began the journey home. They walked with a big group of family and friends. After one full day of walking, they looked for Jesus. He was not there. Mary's heart must have stopped. They ran back to Jerusalem. They searched for 3 days. 3 days. Imagine how that felt. And then they found him. He was in the temple, the most important religious building in all of Jerusalem. He was sitting with the teachers, the most learned men in the land, the scholars, the experts, and he was talking with them, not just listening, talking, asking questions, giving answers. And these old, wise men were amazed. How did a 12-year-old boy know so much? Mary said to him, "Son, why did you do this? Your father and I were so worried." And Jesus said something that surprised her. He said, "Why were you looking for me? Did you not know that I had to be in my Father's house?" He meant God. Even at 12, Jesus knew something important about who he was. But then he went home with them. He obeyed them. He grew up. He worked in Nazareth. He waited. For almost 20 years, we hear nothing more. Then, when Jesus was about 30 years old, something changed. There was a man near the Jordan River. His name was John. People called him John the Baptist. John lived in the wilderness. He wore rough clothes made from camel hair. He ate locusts and wild honey. He was not like other men, but people came from everywhere to hear him speak. John had a powerful message. He said, "Turn away from the wrong things you have done. Change your heart. Change your heart. Life. God's kingdom is coming." And John baptized people in the river. Baptism is going into water and coming out clean. It was a symbol, a new beginning. One day, Jesus came to the river too. John saw him and was amazed. John said, "I should be baptized by you. Why are you coming to me?" But Jesus told him, "It should be this way." So John baptized Jesus in the water of the Jordan River. And when Jesus came up from the water, something happened. The sky opened. The Holy Spirit came down like a dove, a small white bird, and landed on Jesus. And a voice spoke from above. The voice said, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." This was the beginning. But before the work started, there was a test. The Spirit led Jesus into the desert. Not a city, not a home, not a comfortable place, the desert. He stayed there for 40 days and 40 nights. He did not eat. It was a time of hunger, silence, and struggle. And in that desert, the devil came to test him. 3 times, the devil tried to make Jesus turn away from God. The first time, the devil said, "You are hungry. Turn these stones into bread." Jesus said, "A person does not live by bread alone." The second time, the devil took Jesus to a high place and said, "Throw yourself down. Angels will catch you." Jesus said, "Do not test God." The third time, the devil showed Jesus all the kingdoms of the world, all the power, all the glory, all the gold. He said, "All of this can be yours. Just bow down to me." Jesus said, "Get away from me. You worship God alone." The devil left. And then angels came to take care of Jesus. He was ready. The work could begin. Jesus returned from the desert and began to travel. He went to Galilee, the region in the north where he had grown up. He walked by the Sea of Galilee. He saw fishermen working on the water. He called to two brothers, Simon and Andrew. He said, "Come, follow me." They left their nets. They followed him. Then he saw two more brothers, James and John. They were in their boat with their father. Jesus called them too. They left the boat. They followed him. Just like that. These ordinary men became the first disciples, the first followers of Jesus. And then Jesus began to teach. He taught in synagogues. He taught on hillsides. He taught by the sea. He taught wherever people gathered, and people came. They came from the cities and the countryside, from the hills and the valleys, and they came because they had never heard anyone speak like this. Jesus' most famous teaching is called the Sermon on the Mount. Imagine a hillside, thousands of people sitting and standing on the grass, and Jesus sitting above them, speaking clearly. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit. God's kingdom belongs to them." He said, "Blessed are the people who are sad. They will be comforted." He said, "Blessed are the gentle. They will receive the earth." He said, "Blessed are the people who want to do right. They will be satisfied." He said, "Blessed are the kind. They will receive kindness." He said, "Blessed are the peacemakers. They will be called children of God." These words were not what people expected. In that time, people thought strength meant power. Wealth meant God's blessing. Victory meant being right. But Jesus said something different. He said, "The greatest person is the one who serves others." He said, "It is more important to give than to receive." He said, "Love your enemies. Do good to people who hate you. Forgive those who hurt you." These were shocking ideas. And Jesus told stories to explain them. He told a story about a father with two sons. The younger son asked for his share of the money and left home. He wasted everything. He had nothing left. He was so hungry he wanted to eat the food of pigs. And then he remembered his father. He went home. He was afraid. He expected to be punished. But when the father saw his son in the distance, he ran. He ran to meet his son. He hugged him. He kissed him. He threw a party because his son was lost and now was found. This story was not just about a father and a son. It was a picture of God, always waiting, always watching, always ready to welcome people home. Jesus also taught about prayer, about money, about worry. He said, "Look at the birds of the sky. They do not worry about food. God takes care of them. You are worth much more than birds. So do not be afraid." Simple words, powerful words. Words people still say today, 2,000 years later. Jesus did not just speak, he acted. And the things he did amazed everyone who saw them. One day, a man with a terrible skin disease came to Jesus. In those days, people with this disease had to stay away from others. They were not allowed to touch anyone. They were alone and ashamed. This man fell to his knees in front of Jesus. He said, "If you want to, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand. He touched the man, and he said, "I want to. Be clean." The disease left the man immediately. He was clean. He was healed. He could go home. Can you imagine what that moment felt like? Jesus healed blind people, people who had never seen colors or faces or sunlight. He healed people who could not walk, people who had never stood up on their own. He healed people who could not speak, people who were paralyzed, people who had been sick for years and years. One time, a synagogue leader named Jairus came running to Jesus. He was crying. He said, "My daughter is dying. Please come." Jesus went with him. But before they arrived, a messenger came. He said, "Do not trouble the teacher anymore. The girl has already died." Jesus turned to the Father. He said, "Do not be afraid. Only believe." They went into the house. There was crying everywhere. Everyone was mourning. Jesus said, "Why are you crying? The child is not dead. She is sleeping." People laughed at him, but Jesus went into the room. He took the girl's hand. He said, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." And she got up. She walked. Her parents were completely amazed. There were also signs over nature. One evening, Jesus and his disciples were in a boat crossing a lake. Jesus was sleeping. Suddenly, a great storm came. The waves crashed over the boat. The disciples were terrified. They woke Jesus. They said, "Master, we are going to die. Do you not care?" Jesus stood up. He spoke to the wind and the waves. He said, "Be still." And the wind stopped. The water became calm. Just like that. The disciples looked at each other. They said, "Who is this man? Even the wind and the water obey him." These acts were not meant just to impress people. They were signs, pictures of something deeper. They showed that God's power was real and present. They showed that pain could be healed, that fear could be calmed, that lost people could be found. Not everyone believed. Some people questioned Jesus. Some were angry. Some said his power came from a dark place. But thousands followed him. They believed, and their lives were changed. After teaching and healing throughout Galilee, Jesus turned his face toward Jerusalem. His disciples followed. The road to Jerusalem was long and heavy. Jesus tried to prepare his followers. He told them, "We are going to Jerusalem. The Son of Man will be handed over to his enemies. He will suffer. He will be killed. But on the third day, he will rise." His disciples did not understand. They could not believe it. They did not want to believe it. But Jesus continued walking. When they arrived near Jerusalem, Jesus sent 2 disciples ahead to find a young donkey. He rode into Jerusalem on that donkey, and the crowd went wild. People took off their coats and laid them on the road. Others cut branches from palm trees and waved them. They shouted, "Hosanna! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord." This was a king's welcome. But it was not the welcome of swords and soldiers. It was a welcome of hope. Inside Jerusalem, Jesus went to the temple, the most sacred place in all of Judaism, and what he saw made him angry. People were buying and selling inside the temple courts. Money changers were sitting at their tables. Doves were being sold. Jesus overturned the tables. He drove out the sellers. He said, "My house shall be called a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers." The religious leaders were furious. They had already been watching Jesus with suspicion. His teachings challenged their authority. His popularity frightened them. Now this. They began to plot. They wanted to arrest him. They wanted to stop him. But they were afraid of the crowd. They needed someone on the inside. And they found him. His name was Judas, one of Jesus' own 12 closest disciples. Judas went to the chief priests and made an agreement. He would hand Jesus over for 30 pieces of silver. The trap was set. The hour was coming. On the evening before his arrest, Jesus sat down to eat with his 12 disciples. This meal is called the Last Supper. The room was small. The night was quiet. Bread and wine were on the table. Jesus looked at the faces of the men around him. He had walked with these men for 3 years. He had eaten with them, laughed with them, prayed with them. And now, he picked up the bread. He gave thanks. He broke it. He passed it to them and said, "Take and eat. This is my body, given for you. Do this to remember me." Then he took the cup of wine. He said, "This cup is the new agreement between God and people. My blood is poured out for you." The disciples did not fully understand. Then Jesus said something that silenced the table. He said, "One of you will betray me." The disciples looked at each other. They looked at themselves. They said, "Lord, is it me? Is it me?" One by one, afraid. Jesus did not shout. He did not accuse. He was sad. After the meal, they went to a garden called Gethsemane on the side of a hill. Jesus asked his disciples to stay awake and pray with him, but they fell asleep. Jesus walked a little further into the garden. He fell to the ground, and he prayed. He said, "Father, if it is possible, take this cup away from me." He did not want to die. He was afraid. He was human. And then he said something that showed who he was. He said, "But not what I want, what you want." 3 times he prayed. 3 times he came back and found his disciples sleeping. And then torches appeared in the darkness. Soldiers, guards, a crowd with swords and clubs, and in front of them, Judas. Judas walked to Jesus. He said, "Rabbi," and he kissed him. That was the sign. The soldiers grabbed Jesus. His disciples ran. He was alone. They took Jesus to the high priest. Religious leaders questioned him through the night. They asked him, "Are you the Son of God?" Jesus answered, "I am." For them, this was enough. They said, "He has insulted God. He must die." But they could not carry out the death sentence themselves. Only the Romans could do that. So they took Jesus to Pontius Pilate. the Roman governor. Pilate questioned Jesus. He said, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "Those are your words." Pilate could not find anything truly wrong with Jesus. He tried to release him. He offered to free one prisoner, as was the custom at the festival. He asked the crowd, "Should I free Jesus?" The crowd shouted, "No! Crucify him! Give us Barabbas!" Barabbas was a criminal. Pilate was afraid of the crowd. He was afraid of losing control. He washed his hands in water, as if to say, "This is not my fault." And then he gave the order. Jesus was beaten. Soldiers put a crown of thorns on his head. They put a purple robe on him and mocked him. They said, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They hit him. They spat on him, and then they made him carry his own cross. Through the streets of Jerusalem, past the people who once waved palm branches, past the faces of the curious and the cruel, past the faces of the broken-hearted. His mother Mary was there. She watched. At a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull, they nailed him to the cross. He hung there for hours. People around him mocked him. They said, "If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." But he did not come down. He said, "Father, forgive them. They do not know what they are doing." To a criminal dying beside him, he said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." And at 3 in the afternoon, Jesus died. The sky had gone dark in the middle of the day. The earth shook. The great curtain inside the temple tore in two, from top to bottom. A soldier standing nearby looked up at the cross. He said, "Truly, this man was the Son of God." A man named Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body. He and another man, Nicodemus, wrapped Jesus carefully in cloth. They placed him in a new tomb, a cave cut into rock. A large stone was rolled across the entrance. And the night came, and it was silent. 3 days passed. On the first day of the week, what we now call Sunday, a small group of women went to the tomb. They carried spices. They wanted to take care of Jesus' body properly. This was their love for him, even in death. But when they arrived, the stone had been moved. The tomb was open. They looked inside. It was empty. The cloths that had wrapped Jesus' body were lying there. But the body was gone. The women were terrified and confused. And then a messenger appeared. He said, "Why are you looking for the living among the dead? He is not here. He has risen, just as he said." Mary Magdalene, one of the women, stood outside the tomb crying. She turned around and saw a man standing near her. She thought he was a gardener. She said, "If you have taken his body, please tell me where he is." And the man said one word. He said, "Mary," and she knew it was Jesus, alive. She ran to tell the disciples. Over the following days, Jesus appeared to many people. He appeared to his disciples in a locked room. He appeared to 2 followers on a road, and they did not recognize him at first. He ate with them. He talked with them. He showed them his hands and his feet. He was not a ghost. He was not a memory. He was there. He told them, Go into all the world. Tell this story to everyone. Teach what I have taught you. And then he left. He was taken up into the sky. A cloud covered him, and he was gone. His disciples stood there, looking up. Everything had changed. They had been afraid. Now they were not afraid. They had been hiding. Now they went out into the streets. They told the story, and the story spread. Across Jerusalem, across Judea, across the Roman Empire, across the whole world, across 2,000 years, to this day. The life of Jesus is one of the most debated and remembered lives in all of human history. And whether you see him as the Son of God, as a prophet, as a teacher, or simply as a remarkable man, there are lessons in his story for all of us. Here are 5 lessons from the life of Jesus. Jesus was born in a stable. His parents were ordinary people. His hometown was small and forgotten. Nobody expected anything from Nazareth, but God chose this place, this family, this moment. Your beginning does not decide your ending. Start where you are. Begin with what you have. Jesus did not have an army. He did not have gold. He did not have political power. He had words. Simple, clear, powerful words. Stories about seeds and shepherds and fathers and sons. And those words lasted 2,000 years. Speak with kindness. Speak with truth. Speak with love. You never know who is listening. Jesus spent his time with the sick, the poor, the outcast, and the forgotten. Not with kings and generals. Not with the powerful and the proud. He ate with people others refused to eat with. He touched people others refused to touch. He saw value in every single person. In every life, there is worth. Never forget that. Jesus knew what was coming in Jerusalem. He told his disciples again and again, and still, he walked toward it. He could have run, hidden. He chose to go. He chose to face the pain rather than betray what he believed. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to continue despite the fear. This is the deepest message of Jesus' story. Even after everything, the arrest, the trial, the cross, the story did not end. It continued. It spread. It grew. Because love, real love, cannot be stopped, cannot be silenced, cannot be buried. The story of Jesus began in a quiet town, in a manger, in the dark. It ended, or rather, it continues, across the whole earth. Billions of people pray in his name today. His teachings have shaped laws, art, music, hospitals, and schools. His story has given hope to people in the darkest places. You do not have to be religious to see the power of this life. You only need to look at history. A carpenter's son from Nazareth, who changed everything. If this story touched you, I would love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, which part of Jesus' life stayed with you the most? Was it the moment he calmed the storm on the lake? The Last Supper, when he broke the bread with the people he loved most? Or the morning when the tomb was empty? And everything changed? Write it below. I read every comment. If you are learning English, this channel is made for you. Every story is told in clear, simple English, so you can practice your listening and grow your vocabulary at the same time. Subscribe to Timeless Stories, because every great life deserves to be remembered. And I will see you in the next story.